This is the Legislature Today radio program. We're coming to you live from the downtown Bismarck Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill, where it is quite vibrant here tonight. It is Teeny Tuesday. Now, Teeny is short for martini. You have 2-for-1 martinis, shaken or stirred, vodka or gin, depending upon your choice. And we also have $2 off appetizers from 5 until 10 p.m. Down here at the Peacock Alley, which is frankly a marvelous place to hang out and have your favorite beverage and even watch the State of the Union address tonight if that's what you like to do. We have with us this evening a group of folks who are going to discuss legislation in the North Dakota House Judiciary Committee that deals with divorce and how easy it is or how difficult it is to get a divorce. First of all, we'll fill you in a bit on what the legislature did today. In the House, there was a sales tax exemption for clothing that was defeated. There's a similar bill in the North Dakota Senate which has not yet been voted on. The House vote was 65 to 25 against this bill. It would have saved consumers about $40 million over 2 years and also included an appropriation to cities and counties to make up sales tax revenue from clothing sales that they would have lost. More than 100 cities have local sales taxes, and these sales taxes all apply to clothing. This bill was introduced by Elliot Glassheim. He's a Democrat from Grand Forks. And he says North Dakota doesn't tax groceries, and clothing qualifies as another of those necessities of life. The tax is regressive. Minnesota exempts clothing from sales tax, and so if North Dakota did as well, the clothing merchants on the good side of the Red River would be more competitive. The argument against it was made by Representative Matt Klein, a Republican from Minot. He said that the legislature has a number of proposals to cut taxes more comprehensively, and a sales tax exemption for clothing doesn't rank high on a list of suggested tax cuts in terms of the best way to reduce taxes. The House also rejected a proposed 2-year tuition freeze for North Dakota's public colleges. There are 11 of them in the university system. Right now, the 2-year colleges in the system, there are 5 of them. They already have a de facto tuition freeze. They've had kept their tuition steady for about 4 years, and the reason for that is because their tuition rates are generally more expensive than other 2-year colleges in the region, and so they're doing that for competitive reasons. On the other hand, the 6 4-year colleges have not had a tuition freeze, and they've been raising their tuition. In at least one case, tuition's been going up rather aggressively. I'm referring to North Dakota State University, which was referred to indirectly in the House debate when the sponsor of the bill, Kylie Overson of Grand Forks, she is a new legislator and a former student president at UND. She made reference to the 2011-12 academic year, during which 5 of the 4-year colleges in North Dakota's university system, including UND, raised their tuition 2.5% in keeping with a kind of a handshake agreement with the legislature to do that. But North Dakota State University asked for and received an 8.8% tuition increase from the Board of Higher Education. Ms. Overson said that the legislature should step in and limit tuition because of that incident. She said the tuition freeze would have lasted only for 2 years and given students a bit of a break. She said tuition increases over the last decade have been inexcusable, and that when she was a student herself at UND during her own career, tuition went up almost $1,000 during her time at college. And now this freeze lost 60 to 29. One of the chief objections to it is that it would have benefited out-of-state students as well as in-state students. There was also a rather interesting budget presentation by a gentleman named Steve Cochran. He's the managing director for Moody Analytics, Moody Analytics is a forecasting firm that the state uses to predict how much taxes it will collect over the next 2 years. Essentially, it was an update of a economic forecast that was first put out 4 months ago, and there wasn't too much change. There was a bit of a gain in tax collections expected for the rest of this 2-year budget period, which ends on July 1st, and also a bit of a loss in the amount of money that's expected to be collected during the 2013-15 biennium, which begins on July 1st of this year. Mr. Cochran said the state still has healthy growth. The state's economy is the best in the nation by every available metric, but growth is slowing down. And Mr. Cochran said he expects the rest of the nation will start to catch up with North Dakota's economic growth by 2015. The forecast does not change the expected production of oil for the next 2 years. Right now, North Dakota is producing about 733,000 barrels of oil each day. The prices are expected to be between $75 and $85 a barrel for the next 2 years. Production is expected to increase to 850,000 barrels a day. That'd be up from 730,000 by June of 2015. Usually this budget update in the legislature it's really been a big event in recent years because it tells the legislature how much money they've got left to spend. But in this particular legislative session, there's literally so much money, we have huge budget reserves, a huge surplus, and it's like $4 million, it's like decimal dust, and it's not really going to change how the legislature finishes up its budget work, according to the chairman of the appropriations committees and the leadership and pretty much everyone else you speak to. Now we'd like to get to our first subject for our show, and it is a bill that would make it more difficult to get a divorce. This bill is sponsored by Representative Naomi Mouchet. She's a Democrat from Enderlin and one of the new members of the legislature this year. What the bill does, it says you will have a 6-month waiting period before you get a divorce. And this, by the way, this applies to couples with children. It does not apply to couples who do not have children. And within this 6-month waiting period, the adults must go to at least 5 one-hour counseling sessions, of which 2 must focus on postmarital financial planning and 3 that focus on the effects of divorce on children. Now, to discuss this bill, we have its sponsor, Representative Mouchet. We have Representative Kim Koppelman, who is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, which is hearing this bill. Mr. Koppelman is a former chairman of the Council of State Governments. He's been in the legislature since 1994, I believe, when he was first elected. We also have Mr. Bill Newman, who is the director of the North Dakota Bar Association. Mr. Newman is a former state Supreme Court justice and district judge, and he's been the director of the Bar Association for 8 years. And so welcome, everyone. And Representative Mouchet, could you tell us why you put the bill in and why you think it's a good idea?
Initially, I was called by a constituent from my district, and he had said that he and his wife had gone through a bankruptcy, but before they could do that, they had to take some classes on finances. And his question that really made me think, well, I'll look at this, was if the state can require such classes before a person can go through a bankruptcy, why could they not require something before they go through a divorce? He is presently divorced. So that's what really made me first consider it, because I'll be very honest. Initially, I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to go there.
You didn't know if you wanted to kick that hornet's nest?
Right. And had I known, no. But when I did arrive then at the legislature, because this was literally just a couple days before our session started, I went to the Legislative Council and asked if there had been any kind of a similar bill proposed prior. There was, and so I looked at that bill, talked to the people that had helped sponsor that one, and actually then used it as a model of an outline, shall we say. So that is, to be very honest, is where the timelines that were on the prior bill, we cut those in half and changed some of the wording, of course. One thing I'd like to say, the constituent has said, and I think everybody also that's helping sponsor the bill, the timing, if this would go forth at all, the time frames on there are very open to discussion. And not all the emails, the majority of the emails that I've received, of course, have been negative, and they've all, take that back, not all, great majority, have brought up the abuse situation.
Could you explain what sort of emails have you gotten, and to what extent, if I may say, have they kind of misinterpreted the bill?
I don't know that they've so misinterpreted it, but the majority of them have been very negative and have said to me, do you have any idea of how many abused women there are, and by doing this you would be keeping them in a dangerous situation? That is not at all anything that we're trying to do. Nothing.
And there's something in the bill that deals with that, right?
Yes, there is an amendment put in to try to detail to the best of the capability to exempt anyone from any type of abusive situation, whether it be physical or emotional. We're not pretending that it's perfect, absolutely. But one thing I would like to say to the people that only focus on the abuse situations, I do know of people that have been divorced. Abuse was not a factor in it. And they were, I guess you could maybe say, fairly amicable. So I think all of us in general, have a danger to go to the extreme. And I'm not saying that abuse doesn't happen. Absolutely not. I'm not remotely saying that. But those aren't all the situations, and it's just easy to forget about the others.
What did you think about the bill once you heard all the testimony at the hearing? What sort of points were raised that you thought were worth considering?
Definitely the time frame, the 6 months.
Should it be
less?
Okay.
Certainly.
All right.
One email that I received said, we really should be proactive. Maybe things like this should be done before marriage. And I did reply. Actually, one of the representatives I don't know if he was real serious, but he said, maybe we should require pre-marriage classes. Obviously, some churches do require that. Some ministers will not marry someone a couple before they've had some classes. I don't think the state's going there anytime soon, but very much open, as I said, if the committee chooses to discuss this anymore or anything, goodness sakes, this is not some personal mission that I embarked on. And
Representative Koppelman, what do you think about this as a policy move by the legislature, and what did you think about the points raised during the hearing?
Well, I thought it was a very thorough hearing. I believe that there was good testimony on both sides of the issue, and I think the committee has a lot of information with which to make its decision. And the policy question before us is really how we wish to deal with this issue. Representative Mouchet mentioned the idea of counseling before marriage. Interestingly enough, some have said that the definition of a camel is a horse that was designed by a committee. And a few years ago in the legislature, there was a bill that said, and it wasn't any kind of a mandate, it just said that they were going to increase the price of a marriage license. And they said, let's offer a reduction in that higher price if people get some counseling. And by the time the legislature was done with it, all they ended up with was a much more expensive marriage license. So that idea has been vetted in the past, not to say it won't come back. On this point, I think the real question is, we in North Dakota, along with many other states, have what's called no-fault divorce. And it was sweeping the nation. I think maybe Justice Newman here can tell us more, maybe background on that, but it swept the nation many years ago. I have a good friend, one of the things that comes to mind for me on this issue is I have a good friend who is an attorney. And years ago, he made a comment to me that really made me think. He said, you know, in North Dakota, it is easier to get a divorce than it is to get married. So I think it's thoughtful for legislators to look at issues like this and say, you know, even if we say for a couple whose children are grown or who have no children, let them do what they want to do. But if they have minor children in the home, there are more people affected by that divorce than just that married couple. Perhaps there should be some kind of a counseling element. And so I think Representative Mouchet is coming up with certainly a plausible policy idea. It'll be up to the committee to make a recommendation, and of course the full legislature, or the full House at least, to vote on whether it's a good public policy change or not.
Mr. Newman, the Bar Association has taken an interest in this bill, and can you tell me why and what your opinion is of this suggestion?
Well, the great thing about this bill that everybody who's involved in it is involved because really they share the same goal. They want to try to minimize the harm that results for the kids whose parents go through divorces and for the parents themselves. And the differences that we have and the conversations we're having about it are because we all who are talking about it bring different life experiences to this particular issue. The point that I made in testifying to the committee is that because of the career that I've had, I've seen hundreds of divorces, and very, very few of them in which there was some kind of a rush to get a divorce. In my experience, the people who end up getting divorces have had a long, drawn-out kind of a degrading of their relationship over quite a length of time, usually a period of years. And in my experience, the great majority of people don't turn to divorce as the first thing that they want to do. It's the last thing that they're finally driven to. And one of the problems I've had in responding to this bill is that different proponents have expressed different reasons to support the bill. And Representative Mouchet has talked about education to try to minimize the harm to the parties and the parties' children. Other proponents have talked about trying to make it more difficult to get divorced in order to try to save marriages and save families, which is also a fine goal and an admirable goal. But in my experience, by the time people finally have had so much grief pass between them that they turn to divorce, there isn't much of a relationship left to save. And I don't know about requiring premarital counseling, but even one of the experts who testified by phone said that, well, the earlier you can get to these people who are contemplating a divorce, the better chance you have of trying to actually help them to save their relationship. And I in my opinion, I think this comes too late to do much help.
What does the judicial system do now to try to discourage divorce?
Well, there are. I don't know that the judicial system so much tries to discourage divorce. I do think that an awful lot of divorce lawyers, one of the first things they want to talk to about a new client coming in is, look, how serious are you about this? Because I don't want to get started on a big deal and spend a lot of time on it and get halfway through and find out that that there's a chance for you folks to reconcile. If you're going to reconcile, you should work on that first rather than work on a divorce first. Now, I won't say that every family lawyer takes that approach, but I do think probably a majority of them do, and I think it's a growing number of them. To address the education piece that Representative Mouchet talks about, there are several things that the legislature has done within the last half dozen years or so that have helped a lot. One of those is a family law mediation program that the Supreme Court asked the legislature to finance as a pilot project initially in just a few counties, and it's been evaluated by an outside evaluator, and the success has been so great that the legislature has grown it all across the state. And it applies to people who have kids and who haven't worked out every single detail. And the experience of going through mediation teaches them so much about communicating effectively with each other that it helps them to have some tools that they can bring to their relationship after the divorce.
Representative Mouchet, where do you see this bill going from here?
It's a very good question. I'm not quite sure how to answer that because I really don't know.
You mentioned shortening the waiting period. Should there be fewer counseling sessions? Should there be more? What are we talking about?
My first instinct, if anything were to change, I would say probably the wait time could definitely be
shorter.
Shorter.
Okay.
Definitely, I would not be in favor of lengthening it, but I think a lot will be up to the committee and their thoughts and comments.
Representative Koppelman, what do you see the committee doing with this bill?
Well, I don't know, Dale. It's difficult to tell. Be very brief, though, and I'll share one quick story that I shared with the committee. This is not an attack on the divorce attorneys. I want to make that clear with Justice Newman in the room. I told a quick story about a friend of mine whose marriage had some difficulty years ago, and he shared the story. He said, when my wife, and their marriage is still together, they were able to save it. He said, when my wife went to her divorce attorney, the first question was, how much do you want? He said, when I went to my divorce attorney, the first question was, is there any chance of reconciliation? I think we'd all prefer the latter.
The gentleman you just heard is Representative Kim Koppelman. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. We also have had Naomi Mouchet, Representative Naomi Mouchet, a Democrat from Enderlin, and Bill Newman, the director of the North Dakota State Bar Association. Thank you all. Good evening. This is the Legislature Today. My name is Dale Wetzel. I'm the host of this show. And we're here for the next half hour to speak about a constitutional amendment, which will get its first hearing in the legislature tomorrow. What this amendment does is removes the references to 8 North Dakota colleges from the state constitution. There are 11 colleges in North Dakota's university system. The ones that are not mentioned are Williston, Bismarck, and Devil's Lake, Lake Region State College, Williston State College, and Bismarck State College. The reason for that is that they were added to the system after this amendment, after this language in the Constitution was initially approved. We have here to discuss this evening Representative Mark Dosch. He's a Republican from Bismarck. He is the primary sponsor of this constitutional amendment. We have Senator Terry Wanzik, a Republican of Jamestown. He is also a sponsor of the amendment. And we have Senator Dave O'Connell from Lansford. He's a Democrat. He is a former member of the North Dakota House and a former Senate Democratic leader. Welcome, gentlemen. First of all, Representative Dosch, could you just tell us why you put this amendment in and why you think it's good policy?
Well, first off, Dale, thanks for having us. The primary reason why I introduced it is basically it's time to clean up the Constitution a little bit. If you look closely, there's name issues that need to be really corrected on it. There's location issues and missions of our institutions. And so that was a primary focus. I can go through a few of the things if you'd like that we're looking at cleaning up. And first we can look at missions, for example. Currently, as the Constitution is, it refers to the teacher colleges in the state, and it refers to Valley City and Mayville, Minot, and Dickinson. as teacher colleges. And NDSU, for example, is referred to as the agricultural college. And if we were to strictly interpret that Constitution, we could argue that really all of these institutions are currently operating outside the mission of our Constitution, and I really don't think that that's what we want. And then the other thing, of course, is just the mention of locations. Is it really necessary that we spell out in the Constitution where these universities are located? I think everyone knows that UND is located in Grand Forks and NDSU is located in Fargo. So, why clutter up the Constitution with those sorts of things? And then the other thing, if you look at Article 8 of the Constitution specifically, UND, for example, is referred to as the State University and School of Mines. NDSU, for example, is referred to as the State Agricultural College and Experiment Station. It's not even acknowledged in our Constitution that it is, in fact, a university. And as you kind of go on through the Constitution, Article 9, for example, there NDSU is actually named differently. It's called the North Dakota State University of Agriculture. And again, it could be argued, is that really solely the mission of NDSU today? And, so we really have to take a look at all of the issues. Just a couple others, if I may, Dale.
Certainly.
For example, the state hospital in Jamestown, in our Constitution, that's referred to as the Hospital for the Insane. And, when you talk about political correctness nowadays, is that really how we want these institutions referred to? For example, the Institution of the Developmentally Disabled in Grafton is referred to as the Institution for the Feeble-Minded. It's time we did the political correctness on our Constitution, got the thing cleaned up, and in much better shape than what it is now.
Senator Wanzik, why did you sign on to this?
Well, they caught me at a weak moment. When I was approached by Representative Kameen, came over and visited with me, and I know it's controversial. I hesitated for a while, but I believe it's worthy of a discussion. It's been roughly 14 years since it's been put before the people, and I recognize, sometimes things need to be more flexible. Things are always in a constant flux of change. You look at a lot of the issues that we're dealing with in higher ed, and the one thing I want to make clear, and I know sometimes people misconstrue that this is an effort to close schools. I don't see that at all. I think that we need to take a hard look at the missions and the needs across the state, and I think we need the flexibility sometimes within our scope of administering and taking care of the schools, providing the services where having that flexibility might be necessary. And I thought it was worthy of having a discussion as to whether we want to continue the way we are or change. And I think self-examination of our situation is always worth the effort of looking at where we are, how can we improve, do we need to get better or approach in a different way, or do we continue with the position we're in? But I want to make it clear, it's not about closing schools in my mind. It's about having the flexibility to address changing needs.
Would it make closing schools possible?
I would say, as I understand it, it could make that possible. That is possible. But then again, you're talking to a Jamestown College graduate, a private school graduate, and I know very well that schools, even if on the private level, can thrive in this state. And the school I graduated from is an example. It might require a change. Again, I don't see the necessity of closing schools, but I see the opportunity to maybe redirect and provide the needs with the changing times again.
Senator O'Connell, one of the schools in your district, a school in your district, I should say, is Dakota College at Bottineau. And it's one of the smaller schools in the university system. Could you just tell us what you think about about this proposal?
Well, myself, Dale, and anything I say isn't against Mark. This is strictly a debate tonight, and I appreciate you giving us a chance. I think this is the fourth time I've faced this issue in my career. And I guess what, don't take me wrong, Reverend Dodge, is what burns my butt is I was one of the strong leaders in getting the 3 junior colleges put into the higher ed system. We accomplished that. The very next session, a Bismarck representative introduced the bill to take us out of the Constitution and probably close the school. The argument was there's too many schools and get out. So I guess that's why I really appreciate being here. But we were put in the Constitution October 1st, 1889. And then there was an amendment put in, I think it was June 17th, 1938. This amendment, and that put it strictly under the Board of Higher Education. This amendment would remove the institution of higher education from political control. And that's why we keep it in the Board of, Higher Ed and stuff now. And back to what Mark said there, if I may, Dale, the said State Board of Higher Education shall have full authority over the institutions under its control with the right among its other powers to prescribe, limit, or modify the courses offered at the several institution. And the State Board of Higher Education shall have full authority to organize or reorganize within the Constitution and the statutes of limitations. So it's spelled out clear that we can have different missions, and right now Bottineau is often you might say a minus state, you might say, but minus state and Bottineau have a real good working relationship, offer a number of different courses and what. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. Basically, in the other times, Dale, when these amendments come up, our enrollment dropped as soon as it was mentioned it was gone, because everybody figured it was going to close the school. And who wanted to start at a college that was probably be closed before they could do it? So the enrollment dropped. The Appropriations Committee says, well, your enrollment's going down, so why should we fund you at a certain level? So it's the students that have an awful concern, and it's an economical engine for the community at the same time.
So if I understand you correctly, Senator O'Connell, you think that this is not necessary in terms of supplying the flexibility that has been discussed here?
No. We have a Board of Higher Education, Dale, and I guess sometimes we have a tendency to sticking our nose in. When you hire people, you tell them to go work. You don't necessarily stand over your partner over here on my right here, what he should be doing and whatnot. You work as a team, and I think the university system has finally gotten things going in the right direction. Sure, we need. There's been stuff at Dickinson and the building and Fargo and stuff. That's where we have to take and give some guidance and stuff there too. But I think we've hired a chancellor, and that's his job to determine if he's got too many institutions under his control or whatnot. So, but this is protection for the schools.
Representative Dodge, did the university system ask you to put this in, or what is their stance on this?
Dale, I'm not sure where they stand on this issue, quite honestly. We do have the hearing. The first hearing of it will be tomorrow morning at 9:30 in the Judiciary Committee. And so I'm actually kind of anxiously waiting to see how they're going to respond to what we're proposing here. But, this is myself, Representative Killeen and Bismarck here, our kind of initiative, something we've been thinking about for a while, and we think the time has come. And, even if we pass this out, Dale, all this means is that it would then go to the vote of the people, and the people of North Dakota will vote to see if they want to change the Constitution, make these changes, or keep things the way they are. But this isn't the last say. The people will have the final say on this matter.
I guess that's where I'm coming from too, Dale, is the people have already voted on. In Dale, you have to help me with the date,
1998 is what it was.
So people have already voted, and it hasn't been that long ago. And like I say, I'm not taking after you, Mark. I'm debating you already. It's hard to sit across from a friend and say, hey, But no, that's it's been voted on, and it just hurts. the students.
You know, I mean, I think, Dave, the thing to remember, you know, we are basically in a new time in North Dakota here, and I can certainly understand your concern. But everything that we're looking at in North Dakota, some experts say we're going to gain 200,000 to 300,000 people in the next 10 to 15 years. You know, I guess I wouldn't be worried about you know, the impacts, or actually it's going to, I think, positive impacts across the state. And the more that we can do now to start focusing in on institutions, let's give them specific missions. You know, we're going to be able to have really a first-class university system, and being able to focus, I think, is really critical.
When we talk about flexibility, which is a term you mentioned, what sort of flexibility are we talking about? What sort of ideas are possible if the institutions are not listed in the Constitution as educational institutions?
Well, Dale, you know, for example, well, many years ago, and Dave, you probably know this better than I. You're a couple of years older than I am. But, you know, the universities used to have a very specific mission. If you wanted to go to law school, you went to UND. If you were agriculture, you went to NDSU. You know, that sort of thing. And, you know, it just seems today that everyone kind of tries to be everything to everyone, and that's expensive. I mean, duplication of our services and programs is very expensive, and everyone is complaining. You know, you talk to people and they say, my God, look at how much we're spending in higher ed. In just the 6 sessions that I've been there, we have doubled the budget of higher ed, and people are starting to say, hey, what's going on here? You know, are we getting the best bang for our buck, and how can we become more specialized, more efficient in what we're doing? And you know, I think this is something that really, after we get over the scare or the fear of it, I think really is going to end up being a good thing for the state and the people and our institutions.
Can I give you an example, Dale, if I may?
Sure, certainly.
A young student, a senior student who graduated from, I won't name the school, was valedictorian of the class, went to the university at Grand Forks, couldn't make it, failed, and she was valedictorian. They pulled her back and put her in botano in the smaller class settings. She got control of herself and the college life, went back to the University of Grand Forks the next year and become on the dean's list the rest of her career and stuff. So sometimes everybody doesn't just fit into the big institution. You know, sometimes some people want to be a small fish in a big bowl, or a big fish in a small bowl, you know. So go ahead, Mark.
Well, Senator O'Connell, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it just so happens that I do have a school choice bill coming up as well, and I know that's not part of the subject here tonight, but it deals exactly on those same things, that, you know, not every student fits in every type of institution, right, and we have to have that flexibility, not only in our university system and our colleges, but I think in our public and non-public institutions as well.
I'm glad I can be a straight man, Dale, because
you're far from a straight man.
Basically, you know, you're right on, and our higher ed system needs to start blending more with our K-12. You're right on, Mark. We got to start preparing these younger, at a younger age for the college, dual credits or whatever you want. You're right on, Mark, on getting ready for higher ed. Sorry, Dale.
So that's no problem. Senator Wanzik, I want to ask you what you think about, I mean, this amendment takes out the 8 colleges that are mentioned in the Constitution. It removes their references, but it leaves some references in. It says that the seat of government shall be in Bismarck. It says that the School for the Deaf shall be in Devil's Lake. It says that the state psychiatric hospital, if I may refer to it as that, shall be in Jamestown. It says that the developmentally disabled institution shall be in Grafton. Why not take those out too?
Well, I kind of anticipated that question might be coming. I guess when I was approached about the bill, or the resolution, excuse me, you know, maybe it's the university issue in itself that drew the attention to it. With all the, you know, news about the higher education situation in the past few years, and the dilemmas that we're facing and the challenges we're facing with the changing times, I never really gave much consideration to those other parts of the bill. You know, I know you asked about them right now. Maybe they should be included. I mean, maybe this should be a self-examination on the entire bit of it, but I know the focus was on higher ed. I felt that it was important to have a public discourse again about the examination of how we do things. You know, I've never scared of examining my own performance. You know, we face election every so many years, and I think it's a good thing to discuss where we're at and how things should work. Maybe this will be an opportunity to confirm what Senator O'Connell's telling us. You know, I don't always look at it as a negative thing that is meant to try and close schools, that it's meant to try and dramatically change things, other than it is good to have a good public discourse about self-examining how we operate, and if there are ways to improve. And I have faith that the people, through that discourse and discussion, might come to some worthy conclusions.
Representative Dosch, why is it that that there are still some state institutions whose locations and missions are still left in the Constitution after your amendment is drawn?
Well, Dale, it is along the lines that Senator Wanznick has indicated, but also, if you noticed, those are the very specialized institutions in the state. Those are going to be pretty hard to move or change or anything like that. They all have a specific specialized function, and that's why we certainly left them and their missions intact.
One thing too, Dale, you know, efficiency on the smaller schools has been, and I can't remember what session it was when we were looking at the budget. The university phone bill was higher than the whole budget was for Bottineau at the time, you know. So, you know, there's some cost savings in there too, and everybody was named a mission. And you go to the Constitution, you know, the School of Forestry, you know, located in Rolette, McHenry County, or Bottineau, or Ward County. It would give the flexibilities, and the people voted and put it in Bottineau. So I think every one of them has a defined, but like I said when we first started, the Board of Higher Education, we've given them the opportunity to change the mission or the coursework or whatever now. So they have that flexibility now. And with the way it is now, and then they have the protection of the Constitution too.
Representative Dosch, as you know, there's been some turmoil in the university system recently. There was the problem with enrollment fudging at Dickinson State, and most recently we have some disquiet about the performance of the new chancellor. In fact, Fargo Senator Tony Grinberg has said that he wants to put in an amendment to the higher education spending bill to buy out his contract, which would cost approximately $700,000 a year, or $700,000 over 2 years, I should say. Now, my question to you is, do you think that this turmoil, if I could call it that, what does that do to the chances for this amendment getting on the ballot and or passing?
Well, you know, I think, again, it draws attention, if you will, to the higher ed system, good, bad, or otherwise. But it's what people are talking about, and whether it be, you know, how's the new chancellor doing, how's the budget of higher ed doing. You know, people are certainly engaged now more than ever. And so I think all the more reason why now is the time to get her on the ballot and let people voice their opinion on it.
Senator Wanznick, what do you think? Does the situation in higher education at present, does this increase the chances of this amendment, in your opinion, being approved by the legislature, and if so, being approved by the voters?
Well, I'm not a good prognosticator of how elections will turn out, but I sense there is a underswelling public frustration with the way things have been going, and a lot of questions that are being asked. I'm not so sure that it will result in this being more successful necessarily. Again, I come back to we might, through the process, find out that we are on the right course, but there's a lot of folks, I think, that are questioning that. And again, I think we need to have that discussion.
Senator O'Connell, what is your opinion? Do you think that the state of the university system governance is such that an amendment like this might get a better reception than it normally would?
It's definitely on the plate now, Dale. And what I'm more concerned about right now is in the past history, the universities or the colleges come in to fight it. They spend a lot of money to stay in the Constitution, and that took away from scholarships for students. And they're going to fight it big time. That's our protection. That's our bodyguard, you might say. But we'll fight this tooth and nail in the Senate if it comes out of the House. Hopefully, I don't have to see it again, Mark. Sorry about that.
Come on now.
but I don't back down from a fight. But it got placed on the ballot one time, and in the mix of everything, I don't know how the people would feel on this. Being everything's up in the air now. I wouldn't even give you even odds right now, Dale.
What would you think about? It has been 14 years. It has been a while since it's voted on. Is it time for another vote on this?
I don't think it is. Mark?
I respectfully disagree, Dave, as you know. But, I guess we'll find out tomorrow with the start of the hearing and see how Judiciary Committee handles it.
Well, you have to represent your constituents in your district, and so does Senator Wandich, and so do I. And I hope I can take and have enough influence on some of Senator Wandich's colleagues over in the Senate if we do see it, Dale. I really appreciate you doing this. This is fun.
Well, let's we'll be doing it again soon. The gentleman whose voice you just heard, his name is Senator David O'Connell. He's a Democrat from Lansford and a former House Senate Democratic leader. We also have on our show tonight Mr. Mark Dosh, Representative Mark Dosh, a Republican from Bismarck, who is the sponsor of this amendment to remove references to the 8 colleges in North Dakota's university system from the Constitution. We also have had as our guest Senator Terry Wanzik, a Republican from Jamestown and a co-sponsor of this amendment. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.